Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Times are very different, aren't they? And I wonder how you are coping. With me this morning is Ella Gibbins. And Ella, you've put out a wonderful podcast amongst many, but this one in particular, Power from Powerlessness. How fantastic.
Hey, yes, it's very, very timely that it's come out.
Indeed. Were you putting that out? You'd planned to put that out and it just so happens that it's at this time?
Well, I sort of received, for many years I've been making podcasts on the Atlas Emotion series, and I've received names for the podcast, and then I would learn the lessons over the next 3 months. For example, I received a new home as a name, but it was when I was absolutely not living in my dream house. And for the next 3 or 4 months, I was learning the lessons to receive my dream home. And I promised myself I wouldn't record that podcast until I was sitting in my dream home, and it happened. And I was sort of lining up the podcast for this year, but I received this idea to do one on power about a couple of months ago in February, just before everything with the coronavirus is, sort of really amped up. And I was learning personal lessons on power, but then it really just swept over me, and it was a global lesson on power. So the significance of the podcast, I could feel it even when I was putting it out, that there was an extra gravitas to it to share with the world that this is how we can individually move through power, our powerlessness states, and move into places of power.
Right. Yes, I definitely believe that this virus that has really ground our world to a halt is certainly allowing us time to reflect and to go within and to see what it is that is important in our lives and how can we become the best that we can be.
Yeah, I completely agree. And this time has been so opportune to be receiving such, beautiful new energies, but it's about being able to tap into that and to address the anxieties that are coming up because of the global experience of the virus.
Yes. And so people, I know we can help ourselves by journaling, which I guess is something that some people do really well, and others can get caught up in life. Life's busy, and all of a sudden we find ourselves with time. And maybe I know one of the suggestions from Mother Mary in a channeling that I listened to was journal your anxieties. And if you think you don't have any, then listen to your body.
I'm 100% with that. I mean, in the podcast, I pretty much just talk about listening to your body the whole time.
Right.
Yeah, your body knows. Your body knows.
And that's something that would be unusual for some people, or maybe new information for some people who might be watching this particular session.
Yeah, I mean, I remember first coming across the wisdom that my body has the information, and I was healing through an experience of psychosis, the mental illness, and I came across a modality of healing that allowed me to tune into my body and ask my body, what is this fear about, or what is this resistance about? And I would write down all these passages, absolutely in shock that my body could tell me the exact age when I picked it up, exactly what the experience or memory or belief system was, and that I could release it. And it's been totally crucial in my entire journey, because I still, I think every kind of modality is based on that same idea that your body holds the information and you can tune in to understand what that is, or the emotion, and you can release it. So it is surprising, and I was absolutely in shock, but I'm also in awe that really nature has built us perfectly in that way,
Mhm.
that our body knows what to do in these times.
Right. Yes. I like the way that you tuned in. Your psychosis was really a huge catalyst in your life.
Yeah, I think many people that go through sort of a conscious awakening in some way they would have something like a trauma or a catalyst, and definitely mine was a very obvious, blatant catalyst. And I experienced what the world, I think, is now experiencing 5 years ago, in that I had my entire life ground to a halt, and I had to focus completely inward. I knew that was the only job I had, and I moved out into the middle of nature, and nature supported the healing, and also that ability to tune into my body. And for hours and hours every day for a year, I would heal. And it
Mm.
really, yeah, it's changed everything. It showed me how much latent creativity was sort of underneath all of these negative beliefs, and it basically has unlocked an entirely different life. I live in my dream house. Back then I was very challenged. I had a lot of challenging relationships, and everything's changed because I started listening to my body and releasing those old emotions.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is something that you go into in your podcast, showing people that and encouraging us all to to listen to our body.
Yes. And I guess the major kind of idea behind the power from powerlessness thing is that it's immense how much information and true wisdom and understanding every single one of us has. And that ability, I talk about tapping into our own inner suns, and now is more pivotal than sort of ever, in a way, to be so tuned in to that sun, and to spend time tuning into the sun, meditating and listening to what creates that anxiety, and then the exciting new things that are coming forward. Because I believe that a lot of what's happening now is because there's a lot of really high vibrational energy coming through, and a lot of beautiful new energy. And it's just that a lot of these things that we're facing now, they just don't fit in the new space of that high vibrational energy. And we experience it as anxiety, but we can start listening to our anxieties and release them. And this whole time for me, I've been absolutely just deep in that. Whenever I would wake up in the middle of the night and I have a lot of anxiety, and I just for 30 minutes would be listening, asking it, what is this here to teach me? What is this here to teach me? And imagine, I do a sort of visualization where I imagine the anxiety on a ship, and it floats into the sort of into the light, and then it transforms. And I listen. That's how I've listened, and I've just been astounded, because on the other side of all these waves of anxiety that have come through this time for me has been just a breathtaking creativity. I think even bigger than my creativity that I've even expressed to now. So I feel like just by walking it, I'm experiencing the proof of how stunning this new energy is coming in to support us to be more of ourselves. It's really cool. But the trick is, you've got to understand how to work with your body and let go of those things that don't work for you.
Right. Now, you mentioned the fact that you sit or stay and listen to your body. So you tune in for, say, 30 minutes. So it's a matter of us being still, isn't it? And giving ourselves this time to listen to our bodies.
Yeah, for me, it's pivotal. I wake up every morning and I'll go either to a nearby, spot under the trees, and or other nearby nature spots, or down to the beach. And I find that I've been doing these live vlogs, and in one of them I said that actually it's important that the first channel that we tune into, the TV channel that we should be tuning into, is the TV channel of nature. And that for me, in this whole experience, I've actually been getting most of my information from tuning into the sun and tuning into nature, and literally receiving information, receiving what my next steps are, receiving how to move through my anxiety, receiving one time I saw sort of this visualization of almost a healing space, like a Garden of Eden, where I really needed that, and I really needed to be in that space. And then the whole meditation, it turned into sort of this visualization of me just focusing on rebirth. And I was planting these tomatoes. And I think that it was really beautiful because it was just putting my mind to the place of where we're going. We're going to rebirth, you know, and we're letting go, we're turning up the soil, letting go of that old and growing new things. And nature just keeps gifting me in this time. The more I focus on her with the things that I need, you know, I received a leaf in my mailbox after I heard I was going to receive a gift from nature. Just for context, it's very hard for a leaf to get into my mailbox. It would have had to fall a certain way. And yeah, and then it just reminded me to focus on green, focus on the heart chakra. And I even heard that it would do me well to focus on green that day. And so I did, and it helped me to soothe out those anxieties. And yeah, so I would say that tuning into that channel of nature every single morning, it totally changes the course of the day, and you're focused on what matters to you and growing yourself. And even through this time, you know, seeing it as an opportunity. And yeah, nature's just constantly holding you in that space that it is possible to kind of rise to more of yourself, even though all these things are happening around us and within us too.
Right. Now, I can see that people listening will be going, oh, yes. And we all have different things that we might like to tune into, don't we? I agree, reconnecting with nature at the moment is really important. If people are in a situation where they're unable to get out, of course, our minds are amazing. And as you just said, you were taken to this amazing place. We can visualize. We're so fortunate to have these tools, if you like, at our there for us.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think visualization is king. I mean, I would even hark back to, this is how, you know, in my experience, how harsh it's gotten for me. When I went through the psychosis, I was in hospital, and it was completely concreted up. I think there was a mural on the wall of an ocean, and that's kind of all I had, but we were all always inside and always in this space. But the way that I got out of it was I started journaling and writing down everything I was afraid of. And I really focused harder than I ever have on imagining a new place, imagining a healthy mind, imagining a healthy place. And if, you know, we're stuck inside, the power of the imagination is immense. I actually, in my recovery, wrote this piece called Freedom is the Imagination. And that is true freedom. Freedom is the ability to see another way, no matter how it may be physically looking at this time. And that other way actually guides us out. You know, the vista that I'm looking at now is incredible. You know, I only ever imagined this view in my mind 2 years ago, that, you know, my office faced a brick wall, and I always imagined being high up over water. And then when I moved my office into this new place, it's astounding, but the universe gave me exactly the same picture as what was in my head. And it's proof to me every day now that is the power of your imagination. If you can imagine it and focus on it and stay focused on it and move through those anxieties, then you can move to a place of health, and you can move to a beautiful new place, particularly through the middle of something like this. It just needs more focus and more imagination in some way.
Right. Yes. And I noticed before you mentioned that this time is an opportunity. And I'm sure that there are people who certainly don't see it as an opportunity at the moment. And that was one reason I was very keen to have you on as a guest, Ella, because you can say, well, hey, this is my experience. And I think how wonderful that you have created a podcast, that you are able to speak from experience. And I know that we learn so much from other people, and to be able to say, well, this is what I've found, and to encourage other people, which is what we're doing here on Angel Heart Radio, to use this time, to see this time as an opportunity. What is it that I want to do? What is it? Well, first of all, what is it that I can do? What is it that I want to do? And to be able to take some time. I know for years I've been saying to people, make time for yourself, even if it's 5 minutes a day. Do something that's really important for you in that time. And so here we have some unexpected times, some unexpected challenges. To see them as an opportunity is like, let's grasp it and go with it.
I just think that's beautiful, everything you've just said there about, taking time for yourself. It's vital every single day, and now more than ever. Yes.
And so we can write, we can think, and writing does help too, because we can look back and we can see the progression. That I love to concentrate on gratitude as well, and to, especially in a time like this when we know what we haven't got, but to concentrate on what we do have. And for those people who are isolating and they're cut off in hotels at the moment, the fact that they have a comfy bed, the fact that they are being given food, to be able to look at those situations. They've found their way back to Australia safely. So if we can concentrate on what we have and to give gratitude for that, it's amazing. Gratitude is a wonderful key, I've noticed, Ella.
Oh, I'm completely with you. I mean, I wouldn't be here in a much better place than I was, all that time ago, if I wasn't focusing on what there is to be grateful for. There was so much when I started to just really focus on that. And fascinatingly, what this time has actually done is allowed me to focus even more on what I really want to be doing with my life. And I just think that opportunity is there for everyone. A lot of people may have lost their jobs, but I think in the reflection time, having the space to really ask, what really matters to me? What do I really want to do?
Yes.
And if people are experiencing symptoms or actually unwell moving through the virus, it's an opportunity to look at our anxieties and to look at, to go inward in a really, really big way.
Indeed. And to look and say, what is it that I'd really like to do? I'm delighted with the creativity that I see, and people are stepping up and realizing that there are niches that people need certain things. So how am I able to assist people? I've always said that to look at what people need, and then if it's something that we can provide, well, hey, we're creating a business for ourselves.
Completely agree. I mean, and I think that's the most beautiful thing is my business has completely come organically. It started with a dream, and then from then on it was always these intuitions and new insights and inspirations that just came to me. So I know that is what's possible, and that's what's available underneath all the anxiety, actually. Yeah, it's pretty beautiful. Right.
Now, you've obviously been aware of signs, and I delight when I realise that, yes, there's a leaf in the mailbox. I love that. The other day I had 2 ceramic birds that had broken from their bases, and they'd been placed beside, something that the wind could not do the way they'd been placed. And it was like, oh, well, thank you. And I realized that I'd had a visit from spirit. So I love it when and it's our intuition as well, isn't it? We can use that to be guided.
Yes, I mean, I pretty much run my entire life on intuition. So so I completely agree. And you know, watching for signs or asking for signs is now just a part of my daily practice. I'm always, if I'm feeling stuck in some way, I'll ask for support and surrender and know that at some point I'll receive an answer. And often it's in my dreams, because I think that's when all my guards are down. So before I go to bed, if I'm having an issue or I'm stuck on something, I'll ask to receive a dream. Last night, actually, while we're on the topic, I asked to feel my guides really close to me. And the dream that I had, or to feel my guides around me, and the dream that I had was I was on a version of planet Earth that was like our Earth, but you know, it was mainly that I was sort of in these subway stations and I was in this classroom and it was really heavy and the air was heavy and there was a lot of focus on sickness and a lot of focus on death, and I was sort of always conscious that I had to take care of myself and sort of really protect myself. And I was in this classroom and this lady walked in who was a nurse, and she was talking to someone she was nursing, I think, and saying that, you know, that person was connected to one of the angels, basically, Archangel Michael. And that and then she started saying to me, or sort of secondhand, she was on this phone call, she said, it's almost like going to a foreign country and you feel a bit awkward at first because you're not the same, you're not exactly the same, but you know, you can still have this conversation. And it inspired me to open the window of the classroom, and there was this beautiful mountain outside and I felt fresh air. And I think in my experience of connecting with the higher realms, this was kind of the most visceral and clearest experience I've had in my dream of what that feels like. It just felt like really fresh air. And I sort of, when I woke up, I just pondered on that, that I asked to feel close to my guides, and that dream came along. And then a new perspective came along that it wasn't really about this separation between me and these other worlds. It was that, you know, it's just opening the window. I really loved that, you know, it's that close that it really is. And so I opened my window actually and allowed the natural air to come in. And that's how it felt to me, being around my guides, or, you know, how it feels to receive those signs. It just feels like you've opened the window and you get a bit of fresh air and a sort of potentially a clogged up atmosphere. And I really love that focus. And it just made me think, you know, I think that's really what I want to focus on. We're talking about bringing in a new world, but I think it's really just about opening the window and each of us just bringing a little bit of fresh air in everywhere we go, in every little way. So, yeah.
Interesting. So you use dreams as a source of knowing, of guidance?
Dreams are so good for me because they tap immediately into my subconscious and they really go underneath all the levels of the way that I think in my mind. And I, for many years, particularly when I was healing, every time I'd wake up, I'd write my dream out and then ask, what is this dream about? And I did this every day for 6 months. And I had so much emotional understanding and growth out of that. I mean, it was one of my big passions for my personal growth. And I sort of think dreams are like, I say, gauging the emotional temperature of your life. So for me personally, they have been always giving me my emotional temperature. So I'll see obviously metaphors of my relationships, and I'll look at the way that I relate to other people in those dreams, or to other experiences, or to experience I'm having, and I'll really be able to clearly understand the subtext, or how I actually feel about myself, by watching this sort of cinema screen of a movie playing out in. And yeah, it allows me to move forward, because I can just see, oh, I've been believing this thing about myself, or I've been acting a certain way, and I can choose to change that.
Fantastic. So you use dreams, you're aware of your guides. I'm bringing these things up because hopefully some of our watchers can go, oh, well, I can try that, or I've been doing that for years. It's wonderful how we can learn from each other. I believe that we're all teachers, we're all students. In every conversation we have, there are gems for both people, or no matter how many people are involved in a conversation.
Oh, yes. I love that too. I actually learn a lot from my dad. He just always, he's talking about, he's building a new house, but every time he talks, it's like he's talking exactly about, the life I'm building, and the new, this focus I have on the bringing forward a new world. He's talking the first few years out of me building my business, he was laying the foundations of his house, and he would say, oh, little Bob, it takes a while, to lay the foundations, and it's the hardest part to lay the foundations, but it's the most important bit. So he'd always say things like this, and he continues to this day. Every time I call him up, he's always saying something so relevant to what I'm doing, and I appreciate that. I love how everyone is reflecting something about us, and there's something beautiful for us to learn from that, and to gift in that.
It's interesting that you mentioned your father and saying, the basis is so important, because my dad's dad was a painter and decorator. And so my father, although he didn't go into that business, he certainly knew how to paint. And he always said it was the preparation that was so important.
Beautiful. Yeah, I'm all with that.
Yeah. So both fathers giving, and in this time, it's interesting, isn't it, for all of us to think about our relationships and how they have impacted. We're all being asked to stay away from our families unless we live with members, and again, it shows us things that we have taken for granted. I've been very fortunate. I've been able to visit my children every day if I wanted to, because they live quite close. And yet all of a sudden, no, that's not what we're being asked to do. So to appreciate all that we have had and all that we will have again, and to also appreciate the fact that, okay, at the moment, we're all being asked to step back and to see ourselves. What is it that we want to change in ourselves? What is it that we can change in ourselves?
So as you're talking there, I had a really interesting example come to me of an insight that I received the other morning. I was waking up from a dream again, and in that dream, it was highlighting sort of old relationships that I'd had where I felt self-disdain, where I just didn't like myself in that relationship. And as I was waking up, I heard the thought, as if from my guides, don't take it out of context. This is related to the virus too. Mm-hmm. And I had never thought of it like that. And it's can be quite an out there thought, but I definitely have gotten curious that how am I co-creating and contributing to this, and by looking at I think it's actually vital that our time is used to look at our own past relationships and our own way of relating to the world right now, because I actually believe that is what will help us get through it. because they're, you know, our personal lessons throughout this experience. Me looking, you know, having that dream about the ways that I you know, wasn't loving myself was that's the opportunity there. Transforming that energy and bringing that to the world is I believe the way through this experience,
Right.
wherever anyone's at, you know.
Yes. Now, getting back to your wonderful podcast, I'd like you to share with people out there as to how they can log in, because I know you have a wonderful business, the Atlas Foundation.
Of the Atlas of Consciousness.
Right.
Yes.
Fantastic. Even that, I mean, that name is incredible, isn't it? It's got great energy.
That's what I mean. It came from my dream. I had a dream where an old colleague gave me this multi-dimensional book, and he said, "This is what you're creating. It's called the Atlas of Consciousness." And then I immediately looked up the URL, and and I bought it because I mean, I can't take any credit for that name. I feel like it was handed over to me like a baton, and I love it too. It's all about this idea of mapping our internal world and creating a blueprint. And the way you do that for consciousness is you tell stories. You tell stories of amazing people who are pushing their own edges. And so the whole company is multimedia, and it's all about, you know, I make videos with conscious leaders and just anyone really who's sharing a new message of power to the world. And then I've been making podcasts for a few years, and those podcasts are my personal journey. And so, for example, some of the topics are control and freedom and energy, or war and peace and inner landscape. And every topic I'm talking about my life, but I'm actually really talking about building a new earth, and that every single tiny choice we make contributes to the whole, and every emotion we have ripples out and affects everything. So the most important thing we can do is to focus on ourselves and, you know, on our inner world and transforming that. And it's really been amazing because organically it's grown, and organically incredible people are being drawn to it. And so I've been interviewing, you know, I interview a lot of conscious leaders as well, who are mainly bringing in a new world. That's sort of on the website, sort of every facet of the website is really people and messages for a new world, supporting people to ground that. Yeah, focusing on that, really.
See, people have been led to you, you've been led to people. Because I believe when we're in the right space, or when we're doing what we're meant to be doing, the doors open seemingly easily.
Oh, it's been incredible. And you know what's interesting is that, so this time is challenging. It's been challenging for me. But even in amongst this, I think one of the most amazing opportunities I've had in my business came through. And I think it was because I feel surrender more than I ever, you know, I think in this time more than ever, I feel surrendered, because I feel like we're all kind of in the same boat now, you know, and I just feel, you know, just trust my heart and to surrender, and the opportunities flowing in the perfect timing. And man, I mean, we're connected through Rosemary, and Rosemary's connected me to so many incredible people, and then, you know, without exception, to this pretty amazing new connection. And, you know, that was so organic. I was connected to her because I was coaching with a lady named Giselle and Jason, who's an abundance activator, and she came and did a gong bath for us at this retreat. And also Rosemary was sort of Jason's kind of activator in some way, healer. And we really are all connected. I think the more you're walking forward in your passion, the more you really love and appreciate how close the connections are.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also to pick up, be aware when we are being given the gift of another connection. Rosemary Butterworth appeared on Angel Heart Radio with me for a good 2 years or more, and she does amazing work. She has written a book which it's fabulous. I cannot remember the how-to something, but if you Google Rosemary Butterworth, I'm sure the book will come up. And she is such an amazing human being, in touch. And yes, she's so eager to connect people as well as sending her wonderful energy out into the world. Rosemary and her husband John lived in Sydney, and they moved up to a farm in country New South Wales, supposedly to have a quieter life. But my goodness me, they're busier than ever.
They are. True.
Absolutely delighting in it. Just amazing. So, stories. And what's your story, everyone? We all have a story. Think about your story and think about what is it that you can share with other people to lift the spirits, especially at this time.
Yeah, completely agree. Everyone's got something unique, and it's just, coming out each individual. And this is where I believe, you really have to just be listening to your heart, because your heart actually is king. It knows. It knows what you have to come forward.
It certainly does. Ella, it has been wonderful. Now, we need to say to people, I'm sure there's a way of connecting with you if people would like to know more of your podcast. I know that they could go to your website.
Yes, so the website is theatlasofconsciousness.com, and also on the website is my email, so you can send me an email, and there's a Facebook page, which I'm pretty active on. And particularly in this time, I've been doing vlogs on the Facebook page to support people to see the coronavirus in a different way. And so you can also message me through the Facebook page, the Atlas of Consciousness. So there's a bunch of different ways you can get in contact with me, and I'm here. I'll always reply.
Fantastic. I like the way that, yes, you're encouraging, as we all are, to encouraging people to look at this virus as a gift. And I know people might be shaking their heads at that, going, how can you say that? Well, I can. And everybody, look for the gift. What gift are you being given? And I know that there is a lot of anxiety out there. Use the anxiety. What is it that you are anxious about? And as Ella, you have so eloquently said this morning, to write up, to feel our anxieties, and then being able to let them go.
I would also say, on the idea of the virus being a gift, when I received this experience of psychosis, no one would call that a gift. It's a horrifying experience, and I would wish it on no one. But I in my experience, I kept saying to myself, there has to be a purpose in this. There has to be a reason that this is here. And I think that is actually what allowed me to recover from it, and not just recover, but the whole thing changed to reveal that it was a lot of suppressed creativity. It was huge creativity trying to come through. It was just moving in a negative direction through negative beliefs. And by addressing every anxiety and every fear that arose for years and years, actually, it took a while, inch by inch it changed. And initially it revealed a book, an entire book came out of me called The Book of Emotions, which lit the way for myself to get out of the psychosis. And then basically the whole company and the company's like podcasts and everything I needed when I felt so alone to get through that really hard experience that largely people weren't understanding, and I was really frightened. It was all in my body. My body knew how to get me through it, and it's no different with the coronavirus. So I think knowing there's a purpose in it, absolutely, and knowing that our body understands how to get through, they're the two key things that will help us just totally change our lives. On the other side of this, all of us are going to be completely different people. And I think if we're focused on that sense of purpose within it, it's going to be only for the better. Everyone's lives will be something bigger than they have been in the past. So that's the opportunity, I think.
Right. Yes. For people, and especially when we're feeling powerless, to be able to turn that feeling around and realize that, yes, each of us is powerful.
So powerful.
Thank you very, very much for being with us today. And I look forward to watching with interest your next podcast that you will create. I'm sure there's one in the making.
Yes, they come out regularly. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I trust that you've gained from this, and I look forward to being with you again next week. Marnie Perner is going to be my guest next Thursday. Bye for now.